There it is, boys. Love that little intro graphic, courtesy.
Wow.
That is probably the best thing we'll be talking about today. So I thought Robin would be able to make it. I was hoping to finally out him for his relentless negativity over the last, but he's not here. So Craig is feeling under the weather as well. But we will be discussing this 7-0 loss. The one benefit of this game today is that it was a 34-minute train journey away from me. So I'm already home, and we're able to do this today instead of revisiting this shit show tomorrow. Adam, nice early kickoff for you over there in the States as well, because it just never gets. It's not nice for anybody at all. How was that experience for you?
Yeah, there's nothing better than waking up to watch a 7:30 a.m. kickoff and then seeing as many goals conceded as the hour of the kickoff. Just the reason we're doing this today is because it feels like a bit of a defining moment in the season and for Hertzler's Brighton career, where this thing has, at this point, I think you can safely say a 7-0 loss it's off the rails at this point, right? Things have been teetering. There's been ups and downs. Various people, including us, have been accused of negativity at certain points in the season where it was unwarranted. Outside of that, we've all been fairly, maybe Robin aside, all been fairly adamant about giving Hertzler a chance. The fact that there hasn't been a consistent 11 he's been able to run out pretty much at any point. The number of injuries we've had has been alarming. Today, that was even worse with the absence of Baleba and Ayari. But my word, worst defeat in almost half a century, right? Oh, no, sorry, longer than that, almost 70 years. It was 1950, did they say 58?
Yeah, I think they said 58, yeah.
So, literally, unless you are an octogenarian pretty much at this point, you won't have seen this side ever get beaten this bad. Everyone listening to this, bar a couple of odd people, would never have seen Brighton be beaten this badly. So this has to be a podcast about questions and what went wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it starts off with the lineup in and of itself, right, and what happened from that point onwards. And there's a couple of people already that I've seen on social media made me laugh, just saying that, like, don't worry, like, you're all like crazy, like I've seen us play worse than this. And it's like, yes, like one time in 1958 where we lost 9-0. That is the only time you can say you've seen us like perform worse than this. This is the worst performance statistically, factually, since that game.
Well, hold on.
I feel for those that went to Huddersfield, Villa, and this, though, because there are people who are our age that could have easily have done all three.
Well, Luton as well. I'd lob Luton in there.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
What do you say to the people that look at this and go, I mean, I feel stupid even saying this, but in some ways I sort of understand it. Like, were we as bad as the scoreline suggests? Just in the sense that I think Forest's XG was nowhere near 7. I think it was like 3, wasn't it, or something like that?
I haven't seen it, but
you know, like there's a statement to be made, and I think we'll obviously talk about all of the goals, but you can put some blame on Tarek Lamptey if you want to single out individuals. You can put some blame on Bart Verbruggen, which we seem to do now each week after he passes the ball to an attacking player one-on-one every single week. You can put some blame on Lewis Dunk, who has lost a step very, very clearly. I think you saw that literally today. There's a number of people you can blame. You can blame Hertzler for the tactical setup, the lack of central midfield. But how much of this was us just completely shitting the bed, and how much of this was a Forest side that just got spanked 5-0, come out at home and go, we are going to batter you?
I would say it's more on the Albion being dog shit, actually. I mean, obviously getting injury blows very, very late on, right? And losing Baleba and Ayari either to training or illness or whatever it is on the Friday before we play on the Saturday early kickoff is always horrible. Like, that's absolutely not optimal at all.
Right.
You had Matt O'Reilly on the bench, you had Gomez on the bench, you had Hinshelwood, who was half and half fit, right? You have Joe Knight also on the bench from the under-21s. You have a team that are set up to counterattack and score goals clinically from counterattacks. They maybe only need 2 shots in a game to score 1 against Liverpool and win 1-0, right? Like, that's who they are. Like, that's their entire ethos. They've just lost 5-0 away at Bournemouth, who played them off the park by countering their tactics beautifully. And the Albion rock up to the City ground with 4 defenders, 1 midfielder, and 5 attackers, and seem to be almost surprised Pikachu face when every time they counterattacked, the wide open midfield caused huge problems, and we continue to just allow goal after goal after goal. They are superb at set pieces. So what did we do? We simply allowed them to outnumber us in just about every aspect of the box. Where we, if we had 2 people on the back post, they had 3, and we just let them do it. If we had 2 on the near post, they put 3 there, and we just let them put the extra man there, which led to both goals from set pieces as well. And we are once again looking at a game where we are losing, looking really poor, and subbing on 3 or 4 players within the first 10-15 minutes of the second half. That is a Hertzler staple now. That tells me he's making consistently incorrect tactical decisions that put us against the wall already. Like, before we've even kicked a ball, we're making incorrect tactical decisions that lead to 3 subs at halftime almost weekly at this point. Like, that's not okay. Like, to me, it's very clear from this point that Norwich, Ipswich, and United were very much papering over the cracks. I still have no idea what Hertzler's footballing identity is. And sadly, looking at the players, I don't think they do either, because it does not look like a team that knows what they're doing. They didn't look like that in August. They didn't look like that in November, and they don't look like it now.
Yeah. I'm trying to look, because we can all lob on Hertzler right now and jump on the fact that he's not fit for the job. He's too young. He's out of his depth, and very clearly the tide has turned on most of social media from what I've seen, and a lot of that's reactionary. I don't think you can get beaten 7-0 after losing 1-0 at home to Everton, and people go, you know what? Got to give the manager time. He looks like he's got the stuff. I mean, it's literally laughable. The only way that I can possibly think that he went with that lineup was he looked at Forest and said, "This is a team that surrender possession. They're very dangerous down the wings, which is the pace of Elanga and Morgan Gibbs-White, who continues to frustrate us seemingly every time we play them." And he said, "You know what? I don't care too much about central midfield, and I just want more creativity, because I've just watched us at home against Everton fail to create any proper opportunities, because all we did was camp outside their box, and the ball kept," we talked about this last week, the ball kept coming out to Joel Veltman, Van Hecke, Lewis Dunk, and they ended up being our creative player. João Pedro had to drop so deep to do anything. Let's not let that happen again. I'm going to play Hinshelwood. He's going to sit in front of the defense as a sort of anchor man. Everyone else is just going to go forward and try and make something happen. That's my only thought process around how he could have come up with that setup that he had, because, the other thing is, it's not just Hertzler in a room with a whiteboard himself. He's surrounded by a staff, and it's not like he goes, "Hey, I've got a shit idea. How about we try this wacky, incredible lineup that we've never done before with no midfield? What do you think, guys?" Like, there are people that can say, "Mate, this is fucking dreadful," and they seemingly didn't.
Yeah, and I mean, The thing is he's said himself that he did not have a midfielder available and capable of playing 90 minutes, right? Totally get it. For me, what you don't do is then start with just one. Like, if you have to go down to one, like, I could understand if you started O'Reilly and Hinchelwood together and then swap one of them for Gomez and, like, you know, stuck like a centre half in there, or gave Joe Knight 30 minutes, like, give some, like, whatever. I don't mind. But to me, there's two unforgivable pieces here in terms of just, like, tactical decision and then emotionally. And we'll talk about a few other unforgivable decisions that he made today that are, like, emotionally wise, just unacceptable. But we'll talk about one of them. And this is the decision to play Jack Hinchelwood on his own in his first start in 3 months after a knee injury as the lone guy against three very good midfielders at Nottingham Forest, right? Like, Gibbs White, Danilo, and Anderson are not shit midfielders, right? We decided to do that. He decided to do that. The next best part, emotionally wise, that gives me a reaction when I read it is that he believes that he made a decision of courage and he would do it again. That tells me he's learned nothing from what just happened, and that is not a manager capable of managing in the Premier League. If you've just watched that and said, I've made a decision of courage, that is quote direct from him, and he would do this again, that is not someone that I want in charge of any football club that I support, for me. And I'm not on the Hertzler out train in that respect of, like, screaming from the rooftops and wanting him out. From an emotional basis of reading that, I don't care who he is. I don't want any manager doing that. Like, I don't want a manager to manage my team if that's how they feel, if they're not willing to learn from their mistakes. And my biggest thing here is that when have you ever watched this Brighton and Hove Albion football team play since August the 8th or whatever it was and thought that was a courageous performance? When has this team ever played with courage under Fabian Hertzler? I couldn't tell you. I couldn't, because we've talked many times about the fact that we don't actually look that good most times. We kind of grind out results, right? Like, and we're kind of just cruising along in that mid-table Premier League. I can't think of a single time we played courageously. I could think of quite a few under De Zerbi. I could think of quite a few under Potter, and I could think of a lot under Houghton. Can't think of any under Hertzler right now. So to say that you're making a courageous decision, when? I haven't seen that today. I haven't seen that before. And if you're not going to learn from it, what are we doing here?
You know what's quite funny is if this had gone a completely different way. Like we haven't even talked about the fact that we turned down 90 million on something euro for Matoma this week. The fact that we're probably about to get rid of Ferguson. The fact that maybe not after today's performance, but it looked like Lamptey was on his way out for a small sum, which now seems like a king's ransom, to be quite frank. The courage point is an interesting one. What I've seen from this team earlier on in the season is some competence, some nice interplay and sequences in certain games. And by the way, these are few and far between at the moment. I think you have to give credit, and I know we're being reactionary because we're emotional after this game. I would frame the second half against Spurs as a courageous performance. And I would also frame Newcastle away as a courageous performance when the players basically all sort of fell to their knees, platoon style, at the end after seeing that game out. So I'll give him credit there, but we've not seen it in a long time. What we've seen over the course of the last few months is capitulation in games such as Wolves, where the players have given up. So we've seen the opposite of that. We haven't seen them rally around Hertzler or themselves for quite a while, which is a problem. And of course, we know sure as hell that didn't happen at the tail end of last season, where they gave up entirely after Rome. And we had a string
absolutely
of results. And by the way, I think everyone needs to take off the fucking rose-tinted Roberto De Zerbi spectacles. He's not coming back. He was amazing for a little while. And then you could arguably say we went through one of our worst runs in the club's Premier League history under him towards the end of last season.
People are very keen to forget the last 6 months of his reign.
Yeah,
because
really
it was shocking.
It was so bad.
And like, that's fine. And if people think like, if we could have put our differences aside and blah, 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 like, and it all would have worked out, sure, maybe. But in hindsight, even now, knowing the character of the man and given the people he's brought in at Marseille, what? Like, I can't understand it. The only thing I can say is that Cardiff are doing us a favour and getting battered 7-0 by Leeds as well. So at least it's not just us today. They've decided to do one for the Blues and decide to concede 7 away at Leeds. Lee in the chat has got something that I think is actually very fair as well. We should have come out all guns blazing versus Everton, and we didn't look interested in the first half. Hertzler then decides to play an all guns blazing side away at Forest instead when we clearly needed some pragmatism. I think that's absolutely spot on.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, why are fans able to make these observations? And our manager is saying, I don't care, I'll do it again. Like, it's like that Goofy meme.
It's
right?
the Goofy
like,
meme, yeah. I'll fucking do it again.
Yeah, like, what do you mean you'll do it again? Like, you lost 7-0. I mean, let's talk through some of the disaster goals.
Some.
We usually, I would quite like missing a couple of them, just to be able to be done by like 2 hours. The first one, Lewis Dunk own goal. Obviously,
he was due one, wasn't he?
He wasn't he? He loves a good own goal. He said himself it was an embarrassing performance, so at least someone's had the balls to say it from the player base and the team. It's just such a classic Lewis Dunk own goal. He didn't need to stick his foot out. It was going to be collected just fine, but he did it anyway. It goes in. And only, here's a good one. Only Richard Dunn has more own goals in Premier League history than Lewis Dunk now.
Oh boy.
He's three off the joint record though, and I don't think he's going to play that long to catch that one, which just goes to show how bad Richard Dunn was. But for me, like, that first goal, where was Lamptey? Like, he was absolutely absent. And Dunk didn't need to do what he did, but he did because he's trying to make up for the fact that he's doing two people's roles in that point, and there was no need for it. Van Heck lost his shit at Lamptey after that goal. I don't know if you saw it on the TV cameras, but he lost it. And after what was actually quite a good first 10 minutes, that was it. After that, wasn't it? Like, it just, every single time they went forward, they scored. They literally almost every single time. Nine shots on target, 7 goals. So basically every single time.
It's weird to say it was a good first 10 minutes, but yeah, like we had but that was I think, again, I'm trying to be as positive as I can be around what Hertzler was thinking. I think that was the game he was anticipating, those first 10 minutes. And he wanted to try and basically grab the game by the scruff of the neck, as Lee said, sort of go guns blazing. Because if you get that first goal, Forest have to come out of their shell a little bit, and we've seen what potentially can happen when they try and do that. I went on a Forest podcast before this game, and we were talking about how Forest's win rate when they score first is incredibly high. I would imagine Hertzler and the coaching staff looked at that and said, we're not going to let them score first. Let's go and get that first goal, hence the lineup. And, the other piece of, everyone's going to blame this midfield setup as the big Hertzler's an idiot. What's he thinking? Go and look at the goals. Go and look at the first few goals. That's a horrible phrase, isn't it? The first goal is Lamptey. Lamptey playing out of position at left back. Lamptey, who was already being talked about as probably leaving the club, now has to start a game when he's probably got his head completely out the door, about to start a new life at Feyenoord or whatever the rumor is. He's playing at left back where he doesn't want to play. Now, we've seen shocking defensive performances from Tariq Lamptey in the past. We're not strangers to these. The interesting thing that I saw from what happened for that goal was he did exactly what Pervis Estupinian has been doing this season, which is he's jumped up to try and basically have 2-3 players surrounding the attacker, and he's been completely caught out of position, and he's left his runner in acres of space, and he doesn't win the ball. He clips the ball. He clips the ball, and he does something defensively. Hinshelwood then does some kind of weird flick, and the ball ends up with Danilo's feet, and he just sees Morgan Gibbs-White standing at about 400 meters of empty space. You can't blame Dunk for this, as you say. Like, it's an unfortunate thing. He's trying to deflect the ball elsewhere, but he should never have been placed in that position. Lamptey jumps just like Estupinian has been jumping. We didn't clean up the mess, and then you've got a runner on the side who's just able to do whatever he wants. The second goal. So the reason I bring this up is that's nothing to do with our central midfield. That was all on the left-hand side there. Hinshelwood was involved. He did what he did. I just watched it back. Ruta was sat back there providing cover centrally as well around Hinshelwood. There was no issue centrally. That was all on our left side where we caused those own issues ourselves. Second goal was a corner, right? I'm sure we can talk about the set pieces in more detail, the ship marking, blah, 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 blah. That's nothing to do with us running one single central midfielder either. So the first 2 goals have not been anything to do with this lineup that everyone is talking about as this is the reason why Hertzler needs to go. It's juvenile. It's a lack of maturity being shown around how to set up a team. The third goal, what happened with that one? The ball, Lamptey, slightly caught out of position. We've got a runner. They've got 2 men over instead of against one. They're basically a 2-on-1. João Pedro is actually providing defensive cover. Dunk is out, providing cover as well. Lamptey misses his challenge. Ball goes in. Chris Wood is unmarked. 3 Brighton players standing around him, including Hinshelwood. Third goal. That's 3 goals out of 3 that have not been due to the fact that we've played a single central midfielder. They've been Lamptey defensive mistakes and poor marking. So as much as I understand, and I see it too, right? You have to ask questions. I would not be shocked if Hertzler is not in this managerial seat by the time some of you are listening to this podcast. Maybe they'll make an knee-jerk reaction like that. If not, maybe their decision is already made and they'll start planning for the summer now, and he's no longer a fit unless he goes on an amazing run of games. But these goals were not due to his selection, in my opinion. He was forced into playing Tariq Lamptey at left back. He was forced into the central midfield shifts, and I don't think the setup at the start caused those 3 goals, as silly as it sounds to say that.
So what did? Just poor personnel?
Lamptey's at fault. Lamptey's at fault for 2 of the goals, and the other is a corner. I mean, ultimately,
where
you have
to
blame
3
Hertzler.
players to come. Yeah, set pieces you do, because they're coming. They've got 3 players at the near post. We got none. How on earth have you got three red guys right there? Like, what are you talking about? Like, how is that happening?
I'm looking at the cross going in for Chris Wood's goal, the header for 3-0.
Yeah,
there are 4 Brighton players in the box. There were only 2 Forest shirts outside of the crosser. I can see 7 Brighton players on my screen and 4 Forest players. And Chris Wood is left entirely unmarked because Van Hecker is positioned poorly, lost his runner. Dunk hasn't been able to block it. Lamptey missed his challenge. And Hinshelwood is marking no one.
I mean, I think it was at 3-0 where I can't remember who it was. Someone went down, hurt for who was it? Someone went down, and I think about 6 of our players went over to Hertzler in the team and looked like they were getting tactical instructions of like, "What are you doing? This is what we should be doing." And it went on for quite a while, and there was loads of them, and there was people asking questions. They didn't know what was going on. Like, it was very clear that like the players had no idea what they were supposed to be doing today, and it showed, right? Like, because I think Lee in the chat said the same thing. She felt that Lee whatever, said that they felt that Lamptey was being dragged central to help cover the midfield. And I think that not only that, but he was also rampaging way too far forward. But he must have been told to do that because he wouldn't just do it for fun. Like, he's not just going to keep rampaging forward when things are going wrong. Like, he would have done it once and gone, all right, I'm not doing that again. But like, if he's being told, no, keep doing it, like, that's the system, we'll make goals, like, he's going to keep doing it. We conceded loads from it. Look, I mean, and then once the second half comes in, 3 changes at half time. O'Reilly, Gomez, and Adingra on for Hinshelwood, Pedro, and Mitoma. Pedro, I mean, like, I feel bad for him. Like, he was everywhere in that first half.
He really was. He was trying.
What is he supposed to? It's just, I felt bad for him. If you look at his heat map, it's hilarious. Like, it's literally just everywhere. Like, his heat map is just like really faded. Obviously, he only did 45 minutes, but it's just the entire pitch. Because that's what he was trying to do. He was playing defensive midfielder. He was playing right back, left back, centre mid, right winger, left winger, centre forward. Like, he looked like he was going to create our best chances. He made 2 or 3 of our best tackles, and then was dragged off at halftime.
And Mitoma, what did Mitoma do wrong?
I don't understand that maneuver either. I mean, by every account I've heard from every media outlet you could get, including like sources, right, that people say like they hear things internally. Everything I've heard is Mitoma was more visceral in the absolutely not wanting to go to Saudi than the Albion or anyone else associated with it.
That's the rumors, right?
So yeah. I'm not having any of this like his head was somewhere else shit. Like, I've seen that with Lamptey a lot, right? Supposed to be going to Ajax. Is there a possibility that he just wasn't in the right frame of mind and he was forced into the team? Bad decision all round. I don't know. But for Mitoma, I'm not accepting that at all. He didn't want to leave, right? Like, he should be buzzing to be playing. Like, I don't know why he didn't stay on. I don't understand that substitution at all. And for that, you know, in that second half, beginning of that second half, it just felt very, very reminiscent of the Everton home game last week. Immediately quick start, in the ascendancy, playing really well. Welbs hits the bar, right? Like, unlucky not to score. I'm not
He
sure
should have scored at the end of the first half. That was the end of the first half. It should have been 3-1. It was so close. It was like an England 66 shot.
Yeah, it was. It was a great start in the second half, right? Like, we came out, we started performing a lot better. We looked like, you know, it was one of those things of like, if we get a goal before an hour here, like, given what happened last week, you never know, actually. Like, could be a bit of a worry for them with the change that we've made. We actually look like a real football team for a little bit. And then 64 minutes in, just the most, like, it was honestly like the most classic FIFA goal you've ever seen. Like, they just walked, like, they just cut down the wing, passed it in, and Chris Wood tapped it in. Like, it doesn't get any easier than that. Like, it was like they were playing against a League Two side. Like, when they wanted to turn it on and score, they just did. And when they didn't, they didn't. Like, they were quite happy to sit back at times and waste time, right, and do whatever they wanted to do. The penalty, do you want to talk about that? Whether you thought it was? I've still not seen that back yet.
I want to touch on a couple of other things first, because first, I want to go back to what you said about Mitoma. Mitoma seemingly was also the one that came over, and maybe, I don't know if you left at this point, was the one that came over at the end and pretty much led the players over to the away fans.
He did, yep.
Right, and kind of put his hands up and apologized. This is a guy that came off 45 minutes, right? So he could have very easily gone, all right, mate, I'm worth about 90 million and I didn't do anything. I was only involved in part of this, so it wasn't really on me. But he didn't. He came out there and he owned it. And seemingly that's more than what Herzler did, who presumably, based on all accounts, did not go over.
Well, there's another one of those emotional reactions that I feel in my gut. If you had played that bad, you come over to those fans that remain and you clap them, you apologize, you do whatever you want to do, right? I don't care what you do. You fucking come over. I don't care what you do unless it's like to give us the finger, right? Don't do that. But like, come over. Like, for me, right? I'm up at 8:30 in the morning, shower, bit of breakfast, get on the train at 9:30, buzzing, easy peasy, half an hour trip. for these most Albion fans, right? Like, same for me for every home game, right? Like, it's a 3+ hour trip. Like, some of the lads that I sat with today and like stuff, they were up at 4:30 in the morning to get the 6 o'clock train. Like, it's an early kickoff. Like, you all flew up yesterday, right? Must be nice. Like, these guys have paid a lot of money, like 70, 80 quid train tickets, football ticket, food, possible hotel, right? Like, we're talking hundreds of pounds to come and watch this. You at least come over and like applaud the fact that we made noise until the absolute end when you really weren't worthy of it. And Hertzler, by every account, because we were all, for the people who were there, know what happened. There's pictures to show what happened. He came onto the pitch, he shook hands with Lamptey and effed off. That was it. Didn't come over to the crowd, didn't say thank you, didn't say nothing else. He came on, he shook hands with Lamptey of all players, and then pissed off. That was it. Stayed on the pitch a little bit longer, talking to his coaching staff around the centre circle, and then just wandered off. Unforgivable for me. If that, and like I hate it because it's just like I don't want to keep going back to it, and the people that go back to it tire me out more than watching this team today did. But if that was De Zerbi, he'd be more likely to prostrate himself before the South Stand and beg for forgiveness.
Yeah. That's the difference, right? People and I think that's how people they remember De Zerbi, right? A guy that come out from Marseille with bad home form. By the way, that's another piece. They've been so bad at the start of the season that he came out and said, I will quit. I'm happy to step down because we've been so bad.
He basically did, didn't he? He quit on the spot, and then like the board were like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Yeah, don't do that, mate. So you do not get that with Hertzler. You get petulance with Hertzler, don't you? He's petulant on the sideline. Always got a yellow card today for his protestations, which I think were justifiable. I think that was at the point where we should have, in my opinion, got a penalty at one point. Where it was, I think it was Welbeck that got the ball and was pushed in the back. For me, that was if you don't give that penalty, you can't give the one against Lamptey later on.
But it was a blatant pen for me, and my favorite part is that last night, I don't know how many people watched it, but there was Blackburn Preston were on last night, and I've never seen a more insane penalty call. It was a clash of heads. The guy just ran backwards, headed to clear it away, and headed the other guy under the jaw, like right here. Awful, like brutal, like looks so bad. But he is running backwards, his eye on the ball the whole time, and he's just jumped up to like head it out for a throw, like just get the hell rid of it. And the other player has also jumped up behind him, and he's caught him right here, and the ref blows and gives the penalty. Right? Like, if that's a pen, like, what do we do? like I don't
there's no but this is not the day to talk about refereeing decisions, but we would give
it's really not.
We would done no favors. The referee could have given us 4 penalties and we would still been battered. I want to talk about the fourth goal, a phrase you do not like to say, because this is you commented it on a little bit. I've got no idea what this was. 63 minutes in, you've got Diego Gomez on the touchline, coming over to help Lamptey out defensively. I hate to say it again. Lamptey goes in for a challenge, misses the ball, and goes out to the winger. I think this Alanga again. It's 21.
Yeah.
It caused us no end of problems. He's surrounded by 4 Brighton players. Diego Gomez, Tariq Lamptey, Jack Hinchelwood, and Lewis Dunk. There is only one other player forward for Forest. One. Alanga's on the ball. There are 6 Brighton players and Chris Wood. All right. He then, as you say, just runs. He just runs. He runs in a straight line. Complete FIFA goal. R2 merchant. Lewis Dunk just does not have it in him. And just the ball comes in, and Joel Veltman is the one trying to put the challenge in, but he's obviously behind Chris Wood. Van Hecke has missed the cross entirely.
I I can't understand that at all. Like, what is he doing?
Not Van Hecker looked shocking today. I mean,
I'm not going to
everyone
blame
looked shocking.
I'm not going to blame Veltman at all for
Nah,
that
you
goal, because
can't really
that
blame
goal for
Veltman.
him,
You can't blame Veltman.
What can he do? Like, he's at right back, and he's like, and it's coming for Like, of course he's going to try, but like, it's nothing to do with him. Like, he's just seen it in the moment, going, how the fuck is he back on his own in the middle here?
But to think about these goals, I know it's so silly, because in some ways I'm doing mental gymnastics here, but in some ways you've got to disregard the final 3 goals, right? When you're down 4-0 away from home and there's only 20 minutes left, or whatever it is, 30 minutes left, the team have given up. And especially when it gets to 5-6, they're gone. The heads are gone. So it's almost like the last couple of goals, you don't even give a shit anymore. But the first 4 goals, let's just recap again. Goal 1, Lamptey's missed his mark. Hinchelwood's flicked it. No one's tracking back. Gibbs wide, acres of space. The ball comes in. Dunk scores an own goal. The second goal is a corner. The third goal is one where, again, you miss a tackle. You've got plenty of players in the box, and Chris Wood is just left alone to head in. Defensive mistake. The fourth goal, you're surrounding players. You miss a tackle. You let them run through. Dunk doesn't have the legs. Defensive mistake. No one can tackle him. Van Hecker marking poorly, even though you've got 2 men surrounding Chris Wood. That is 4 goals where you have shot yourself in the foot. That is not, again, I know it all has to come down to the manager. That is not tactical issues. Those are not tactical issues. Those are 4 goals with players not performing properly.
I think this is where my concern is with this. And I think I've said this a couple of times where we've had a couple of really bad performances. And I talked about how I have concerns around Hertzler weeks ago, right? Like we all did when we went through some of these really poor runs. And I think it was actually after Leicester that I said it. But I have really, really big issues with this inability to avoid individual errors, right?
Yeah.
And it is absolutely bonkers that we should be drawing with Wolves from 2-2 at home, drawing at Leicester with Van Nistelrooy, who's an absolute bum, by the way. It's a joke. Like, he's not a good manager. He will not be there for much longer, surely. Mm-hmm. The set pieces today, right? Like, we all saw how poor they were when we're playing against a team with fantastic set pieces. We knew this and did nothing to combat it. Or if we did, it was woefully unacceptable, right? All of this, to me, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. It doesn't come down to 4-1-5 or whatever the hell we were playing, but it does come down to bad coaching. We are being coached badly if we are having this many individual errors, because the system that we're in, if we have that many, it's not down to, well, Lamptey's shit, just get rid of him. Like, because it's not just Lamptey, right? Like, we're seeing it every week. Verbruggen's passing is way off. Lamptey's giving up goals. Dunk's giving up goals. Eagle's giving up a couple. Palaber's giving up a couple. Estepinian, Weaver,
Van Hecker,
Veltman, Van Hecker. Like, all the Milner in like the first game, he almost gave one up and then got injured, never played again, but he's still got an error. Like, all of these play, like that, to me, like, unfortunately, like tactically, fine. Like, but you've got to then look at, like, actually, like, we are still poorly coached when you are having set pieces and individual errors as some of your biggest weaknesses. That is, regardless of the tactics you're throwing down, that tells me you are a poorly coached side. If you're 2-0 up at home and can't keep a lead against a team that are likely to be relegated in one of the weakest bottom fours I've ever seen in the Premier League, you are badly coached. If you are drawing it away at Leicester when they are likely to be one of those that go down, with a manager that has shown himself to be tactically naive, incapable of rallying this team, and full of naive mistakes, you are badly coached. If you are going to Forest and playing one man in your midfield against a team that is built and designed to counterattack with ruthless efficiency and aggression, you are badly coaching this team in the system you're throwing out there. It's a badly coached team. It just is. Like
it is, but it's a badly coached team. But these players, from what we've seen and what they're capable of, like, how much do you need to coach Lewis, Duncan, Van Hecker, who have played together a lot, Joel Veltman, who's played together with them a lot? Why do you need to tell these players, all right, mate, don't make tragic mistakes every game? Do you think you could possibly do that? Like, you shouldn't. Again, I know Herzler's going to be thrown under the bus and it's going to be the end. And I agree with you, right? I think he's probably at this point, you've lost the dressing room, right? I don't know if you come back now. And Trebor said this, Trebor said this in the chat. I guess it's Robert backwards, like the old Trebor sweets. Anyway, it's clear Herzler's eventually going to leave. I think the tumble down has begun. Clubs should just act now rather than inevitable decay. Yeah, I mean, you say that, but I asked this question a little bit earlier on Twitter. All right, let's say you fire Herzler this weekend. Who you having managed the team? Who are you going to bring in? Who is a viable managerial candidate for you to? But you going to bring Dychin? Because other clubs on the February the 1st aren't going to let you talk to their managers. They're not going to let the manager go. So you're looking for an unemployed manager at this point, right? Unless you can get a buyout, and there's still it looks really bad on a manager if they say, you know what, I'm peacing out right now and I'm going to go manage Brighton in the middle of the season, just as we come down to the important stuff. Because the only managers that you'll be allowed to speak to in that situation are the ones that have wet the bed for the first half of the season, and the owners don't care about them going. You're not going to get quality at this point. So like, I know people hate that defensive. Well, who are you going to bring in? Because it's like, well, you've got to get the deadwood out, get the rot out of the club as soon as possible. But if you think this can't get worse, I don't know about that. Like we've seen what happens to this club last season when they check out. And yeah,
for me, there's no way we get rid of him until the summer. No way, none at all.
How many 7-0s do you want? What if we lose 7-0 next weekend?
Hang on,
because we've got to play Chelsea twice in a row. Do you remember the performance against Chelsea earlier on in the season?
I do. But I'm trying to look something up on the fly, and it's killing me. 2019.
Look it up. I mean, I think I personally think you still need to give him some more games, because, and I purely say this from the sense that this is an indefensible couple of games. It's you can't lose 7-0 and come out and say we're in full support of the manager. We know that's BS. Like we know if they're not having crisis talks right now or succession planning, we know they're lying. Having said that, this is a team that for a good few weeks in this league were in the Champions League spots at the start of the season. We've had a catastrophic run of injuries that continues to this day, where, you know, it's easy to be revisionist, but if you're playing a central midfield today of Carlos Baleba and Yasin Ayari, or Carlos Baleba and Jack Hinchelwood, there's no way this happens, in my opinion. There's no way that happens. If you have a proper left back today, that accounts for 2-3 of the goals. And again, I know it's hard to say that on Tariq Lamptey, but I know it's badly coached. I know it's hard to defend him for every single sort of performance and goals that we've had here. But the player performances for professional level players of what we know they're capable of today, after they come out after a very uninspiring performance against Everton, to come out and do this, I don't care if it's Krusty the fucking Clown coaching the team. You've got to hold yourself to a higher standard than that. There should be no way these players are capable of the level of mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake that we saw here in the first half, or for the first 4 goals. After 4, it's over. The 5th was a penalty that shouldn't have really been a penalty. Lamptey's head's completely gone. He's already made 400 mistakes. The 6th and the 7th goals, I don't even want to talk about. It's the game's done. Who cares? Yeah, I don't know. It's Herzler, it's the players, it's everything. And when you're talking about it being everything and everyone, You're too far gone, aren't you?
Yeah. I will say, I don't think he's going anywhere. I think we could lose 7-0 again at home to Chelsea and he's not going anywhere. I think we could lose 7-0 2 more times and he's not going anywhere. I don't see it happening. Bloom is stubborn to a fault when it comes to this stuff. Sami Hyypiä had to basically force his resignation through after his performance. Bear in mind that was after a 2-1 defeat at home to Fulham, 3-0 away at Derby, 1-0 away at home to Millwall when we were in the relegation zone. And Bloom did not want to accept his resignation on some of the worst football we've seen in quite a while. 2018, 2019. Let me run you back. Let's run this back. Brighton and Hove Albion fighting for their lives at this point. We are like 2 points off the drop. I think we ended up surviving by, let me look. We survived by 2 points in this season. That was it, 2 points. Our final 9 games were Brighton and Hove Albion 0, Southampton 1, Chelsea 3, Brighton 0, Brighton 0, Bournemouth 5, Brighton 0, Cardiff 2. Wolves 0, Brighton 0, Spurs 1, Brighton 0, Brighton 1, Newcastle 1, Arsenal 1, Brighton 1, Brighton 1, Man City 4. We lost to Southampton, Chelsea, Bournemouth and Cardiff at home, both relegation rivals in that season. Both went down. And we did not pull the trigger on Chris Hughton at any point in time. We'll let him go at the end of the season, but we did not pull the trigger.
Well, okay, but
we're not going down. We're not going down, are we?
I accept all of that, but you're talking about Chris Hughton, who comes with a long CV.
Yep.
We were talking about Sami Hyypiä, a player that played at the highest level, that then was part of, I know it's a weird setup, but took by Leverkusen basically to a Champions League. You can argue. I think it was third, then fourth when he was involved in the team, even though he got sacked. Roberto De Zerbi, if you want to talk about the performances at the end of last season, this is a guy that coached Champions League football and also had the fans on board still in a lot of areas because of his passion for the team. And
Potter's winless year.
Well, finishing on De Zerbi, he built up a lot of credit in the bank after that previous season as well, right? Like
he did.
The miracle. Potter had a lot of credit in the bank. They loved him. He seemingly managed up well, and had all of the staff and people on side. And he'd brought Brighton to levels that we hadn't seen. So all of these managers rather, had a lot of credibility or reasons why you go, we keep them around. Fabian Hürzeler didn't play at a very high level and spent a year in the Bundesliga 2. And he's 39 or whatever he is.
31.
I added some more years. 31. You've got no reason to say, I know what this guy can be. I'm keeping him around. He hasn't built up any credibility in the club. He's got no track record beyond a second-tier performance in Germany. So I don't know whether they keep him around necessarily until the end of the season, because they might just look at this as a business decision and make a quick decision and say, we've made a mistake. This is the wrong guy. We're going to cut our losses immediately, because the more we stick with this, the more we drag ourselves down into the mire, the more our blue chip players decide towards the end of the season, actually, I am going, because I don't want to sit around if they're going to keep people like this around. We don't want some naive 31-year-old at this club.
I think the soonest we see him go is Southampton away. I think if we lose to Chelsea twice, because that essentially ends that season, right? Like losing the FA Cup, we're done. Like that's the end of the season. We're not getting in Europe. We're not going down. We're not winning a cup. Jobs are good, and we're sitting in 14th at the end of the season.
Right.
A really disappointing season. But lose at home twice to Chelsea back to back, and then lose away at Southampton to give them 4 points out of their total of whatever it is now.
Well, I joked about this last week. Yeah.
They've just, to be fair to them, they have just hit Derby's 9 after beating Ipswich away. So, yeah. To me, I don't think you see him go anytime before that. If he goes, I don't think you bring anyone in. I think you just have Crofty come on. I think you literally accept that exactly what you just said. I think the club would go, the project is not going in the right direction with him. We're stopping the rot with him in charge. We're going to have Crofty run it for the rest of the season and get a new man in June.
Danny Welbeck, James Milner, player managers.
Yeah.
Give Adam Lallana a call.
But I really think that I don't think we would bring in anyone. I think we would have Crofts and team run that for the rest of the season if we're going to do it. But I don't think we will. I think they're going to sit there unless there is absolute mutiny. Can't ever account for the human effect, right? Like if there is pure mutiny and the players are like, I am never walking on that pitch again with this prick in charge. Well, but by the way, things will happen, right? But
we're going to see that if that happened, we'll see it this week, because this is the one where you start to get the agents and whatever leak stuff where they come out and
3 days before the end of the window too.
We never believed in him. He's been shit for ages. Now you guys have seen it all. Like, he's not fit for it. This is where the little stories will come out saying he's pissed off X, Y, and Z, and he's out of his depth. Like if it happens, you'll hear it now. Because this is where you get your airing of grievances for free, because everyone now has a target painted on his back. Couple of messages in the chat here. Alfie, what a load of bullshit. Worst performance I've seen in potentially in 20 odd years of watching the Albion. Well, as we said earlier, technically it's the worst performance you'll have ever seen in nearly 80 years. So definitely would have been the worst performance in the last 20 odd years. Tim, at 3-0, you say, right, no more, defend for your life so it doesn't become an embarrassment. That's not what you're going to get out of Herzl. I think we've seen that. Regardless of however many questions you have, he's gonna go for it. And I think, yeah, you're going to see a 7-0 scoreline like that, because he's going to come out and he's going to try and make something happen. He's not going to care whether he necessarily loses 7-0 or he loses 3-0. It makes no difference in his mind. Yeah, I'd be interested if you polled the fan base right now. I'd be interested to see how many people say they want to keep him around.
Well, with North Stand Chat have got one, and they're usually rather representative of parts of the fan base. They've got one, and 59% want him out. 22% fence, 18% in.
So he's got less than a 20% favorability rate, and that is not good, is it?
That is like, to be fair, I think the only person who's looking at that and thinking, "Cool, that looks nice," is like end game Joe Biden. I'm not sure there's many of the people that are looking at that and thinking like, that's not bad.
Yeah, what we're going to bring in our Kamala Harris now, because that would be maybe not the right move for us.
It wouldn't.
Yeah, and Robert backwards makes a good point, right? No other manager oversaw such a large spend either. Bloom might take the gamble of calling it now rather than later, because the aimless styles devaluing the players. I think, sure. I think that's a valid point. I've been asked that question on other podcasts as well. Like, when your players are performing, the team drops off. Is that a big concern, because it makes some of your bigger players lose some of the value? If it happens consistently, then yes. If it happens consistently, obviously, with someone like Matoma, that's clearly not stopping the Saudis. But someone like Van Hecker, if you see that Van Hecker performance over and over again, this is a player who I think we all, a few weeks ago, were saying, this is the guy, this is Dunk's replacement. By the way, I think he still is, right? This is a blip. But very easily, other clubs could look at this and go, I was going to offer you 60, 70 million for that guy. He looks incredible. But now that we've seen the floor is actually too low for us, and we're not going to take that risk. We're seeing it live in action with Evan Ferguson. Some of you might be listening to this and he's already made his move and he's gone to West Ham. We don't know if it's going to be a permanent deal, whether it's going to be a loan deal, whether it's going to be a buy option while we record this. We don't know. But this is a guy that silly numbers were being thrown out, not quoted by the club, obviously, but silly numbers of the Irish Alan Shearer. Guy now hasn't scored in a year. Injuries crept up. Problems happen. Now we're talking about, can we get him a loan to just see if he can actually put the ball in the net? So yeah, it can be an issue. It can be a financial issue. Look, the fact that we have to go and play Chelsea at home 2 games in a row now. By the way, our home form, as we talked about last time around, not good. Andy Neal wrote an article this last week in The Athletic about the struggles with our home form. There are only, I think, 3 or 4 teams in the entire league that have won fewer games at home than we have. I think we've won 3 games at home this year. We've got one of the most draws. Yeah. And that Chelsea performance early in the season, that 4-2, the first game, I think, where we all said, does this guy know what he's doing?
Yeah, to just add to that, Palace, Leicester, Wolves, Ipswich, and Southampton are the teams with less home wins than you. They are your colleagues right now in action. They are your squad. Is Brighton home form at the Amex.
But the away form's good, apart from the 7-0.
That little one, just that little one.
Asterisk.
We're 8th for wins in the Premier League away form. We're 8th in the away table, which is obviously good, right? Like that's where you would want to be. But for me, like at this point, like I'm like, there's no way I'm allowing Ferguson to leave on a permanent. Not with the way the trajectory is going. Like the new guy might want him in the summer. Why would I get rid of the guy?
A club doesn't operate like that, do they? Though they operate on their. And by the way, Alex has just correctly said positive reference about Andy. Now I didn't say it was a good article. I just said he wrote an article. And he might not have even written it. Who knows? It was like AI generated. You're right, but the club make the transfer decisions off of the back of the overall strategy, don't they? Less so on the manager. And I think, well, you could cast exception to that maybe under De Zerbi with a couple of the signings that were made pretty much for him. And how did they go? Ansu Fati, tragic. Who else did we bring in that we just ship? Who else did we just ship? Barco. We haven't talked about Barco. He's gone.
There was one other.
Igor was sort of one, but I think he's the best one.
He was a left-footed centre half though. So, like, he requested a left-footed centre-half. We went out and got him one. He didn't pick Igor. Fati was... Even then, Ansu Fati wasn't a De Zerbi signing either. I don't like that one. Because Barber has gone in detail, clapping himself on the back about how he got Ansu Fati in the door. And De Zerbi saw him across the line. And then when it's all gone wrong, it's all gone very quiet. And it was like, De Zerbi's signing. But like at the time, like Barber was like giving interviews of how it all went down, how it all unfolded, and how he was like in the middle of it and like getting himself stuck in. And then as soon as it all goes wrong, he's like, nothing to do with me, mate.
Well, you're right. I mean, let's talk a little bit about transfers because again, you cannot, even with this defeat, you have to give Hertzler some level of sympathy with these injuries because it's the same. We're just in parallel with Spurs, right? You've got 2 managers that both want to play a level of attacking high-risk football where you're going to get battered every now and then.
Yep.
And both have had shocking levels of injuries, and both fan bases are now calling for the heads of the managers. And by the way, I know it's a side note, but if Spurs fired Ange tomorrow, I'd take him in a heartbeat. I know that probably wouldn't be a popular decision.
Do you know what though? Like, I know you say like, they're both high level attacking like intensity managers. Spurs are the 3rd highest goals for. They've scored more than every other team except for City and Liverpool. We are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We are 11th. So we're not even scoring. We're not. We may think we are or be told that we are, but like we're actually not very.
We were.
And we've conceded more than Spurs have.
But remember, we've had Evan Ferguson who can't score under any manager, seemingly, apart from 2 weeks under De Zerbi. We've got Danny Welbeck who was on fire was on
Yep,
on
start
track
the
to
season,
have
yeah.
his highest scoring season in his entire career, injured.
He's still down, to be fair.
Right, and so you know, I will say that this is a Spurs side that have Heung-min Son and a 60+ million pound Dominic Solanke and James Maddison and other players that are going to get you goals, and we've got a bunch of injuries and João Pedro playing the number 6 role. So at the start of the season, we did see goals. Transfers, I want to touch on that very quickly, just because you look at this and you go, is there a light at the end of the tunnel? We did sign it. We signed a defender. I said we would sign a defender. We had to sign a defender in the January transfer window. Aaron Cashin from Derby. What's our thoughts?
The one we wanted a defender who can add a bit of pace to the back line, prevent us from being caught like in situations like today, right? Like I think we were doing that. So Cashin, where a lot of Derby fans are very sad to see him go. But they're one big negative that they can give, which is always good to hear the good and the bad, right? From a player that they love and don't want to see go. At least we can see what they feel truly. Great on the ball, great in the air, very tidy player, very calm player, slow as a snail. So how'd that work out? Like you talk about the transfer strategy and what we're doing, right? I have to ask that of like the vaunted transfer metrics we have, because at some point we have to ask the question, not of Hertzler, not of De Zerbi, not of Potter, but the vaunted data system we have that insists we don't need to sign a natural right back for 5 years.
Yeah.
What is the transfer strategy? Because we've signed about 86 million wingers and we're about to sign 2 more. And we've not signed a number 9. We've not signed a right back. We've not signed centre halves that can cover what they want our managers to play, right? Because these managers are being brought in by Bloom and the gang to play in a certain style. That's why we're hiring them, because they have the same or similar philosophy as the owner. Totally get it, right? And as a fan, we want to see that style too, right? Like it's fun, it's nice to watch, it's good. But I don't understand what is going on with some of these transfer moves when we aren't bringing in some of these players. Every summer, we're rumored to sign about 3 different right backs. We haven't signed one in literal years. Like Veltman was signed as a centre half. He's not a natural right back. He's forced himself to be.
Yeah.
And how lucky are we that he was, right? How lucky?
Well, by the way, I've remembered the other De Zerbi signing, unfortunately. Mahmoud Dahoud.
That's the one. God.
Well, that worked out well, didn't it? Woof. Woof. Yeah, you're right, because we've got Cashin in. It's a body. So that's something. We're rumored to be signing 18-year-old Tommy Watson from Sunderland, a winger. As you say, we need another winger. South Korean 10-year-old that we're signing.
Where's he play, Adam? Say the words, Adam.
Where does he play? Say the line. Winger. We've actually gone delirious. That's how bad the performance was. Those are the ones I'm hearing. And there's a Sunday left in the transfer window? Sunday and Monday, something like that?
Yeah, Sunday, Monday. Monday's deadline day. I know we don't do business in January. I get it totally. And I know that we did want some pace at the back. And Cashin isn't going to do that, right? And that sucks a little bit. But I'm actually happy with that signing. I think most people are. We did need a centre half. We've just lost Igor for the entire season. We need another centre back. Like, I'm absolutely fine with the signing. I'm keen to see how he does. I think it's a little bit harsh on McConville too, because I think he's looked really tidy whenever he's came on, but it is what it is. Like,
well,
he's going to go on loan, right?
Yeah, I just saw a tweet about him going out on loan.
Oh, well, that solves that. And he's 23, Cashin, right? So he should be, in theory, ready for the step up immediately. What concerns me is most Derby fans don't think he is, but then it doesn't really matter until you're on the pitch, does it? Like, there are certain people that we think Dahoud, Fatty, that would be able to step up to the Premier League and piss all over it in the role that they are. And then there are other players that come in that Ajax are pissing themselves laughing that we've signed him, and he ends up being one of the best players on the pitch, the most consistent 7.5 out of 10 players we've had in the last 4 years in Veltman, right? So it's always, we don't know how that's going to work out. So we'll just have to see. But for me, that home form is where it's going to get nasty pretty soon. Honestly, it's going to get brutal. Who is AMG clan?
We got some trolling in the chat. Some Palace fan. Look at that. Yeah, they come out the woodwork when it's when these kind of results happen. Look what you've done.
You know we're getting massive on YouTube when we got a bunch of homophobic Palace fans coming in.
Yeah, no, that is a sign. That is we've made it. We finally made it. Wolves currently beating Villa, so interesting. I really don't know how else to kind of think about this defeat because it's absolutely horrendous. Absolutely.
AMG. I know we only have 24 viewers, mate, but we're going to have to time you out if you don't grow up. So we'll go down to 23 and we'll be fine with it if you don't be quiet. So,
I don't know what else to say. It'd be interesting to see how the club reacts to this, whether they do make the move on Hertzler now or in the summer, or whether they just let it play out. And it's going to be interesting to see whether when we get some of these players back from injury, how much of a difference it makes. Because if it wasn't for the absence of Balabia and Ayari, we would have a solid setup now that we don't have all these injuries. And perhaps we do see whatever it is, the brand of football that Hertzler wants to play, if he has one, because we've not seen it. And I want to be able to blame the injuries. I want to be able to blame some naivety. Look, you don't sign a 31-year-old manager and expect perfection from day one. There's no way. You can't do that and go for the high risk move and not expect there to be some stumbling blocks. It's just, did we really think that at the start of the season we bring in this guy that's got no top level experience, is younger than us, he's going to come in and we're going to go on a Champions League run? But honestly, I know we've got the rose tinted spectacles on and all that, but let's be realistic about it. Did we really think that? Like in your heart?
I think some people really did. I told you that I thought we were going to finish 13th this season.
Right.
I thought this would be
the 12th, right? I think something like that. It's probably going to be around there.
I thought it was going to be very much a season transition. I think that the problem is, and we've just talked about it, if this nose dives as bad as it could after the 7-0, if we now get dicked at home by Chelsea twice and get a negative result at home to Saints, like how bad the nosedive goes could become very worrying. To me, I think that's like really where we'll see the issues come in. Because I think that the Albion decided they were done with De Zerbi after Roma, right? Do you agree with that? I worry that we could be in a situation where they make that decision at the end of February, if it's as bad as it is, and just go, he isn't the future. We're going to make our preparations now.
I mean, maybe. I mean, the Rome was incredibly disappointing, and then the performances after that were even worse. But I genuinely think if he didn't have the attitude issues and the falling out internally about transfers and whatnot, which are fairly well documented at this point, I think they might have given him another chance. Just purely off of the back of what he did the previous season. All right, mate, you're going to stick around. You're not being an arsehole. Here's a bunch of money we're going to spend on these players. Now go show us. Like if you fail with this now it's an issue. But he caused his own problems. He fired himself based on the attitude. Back on your point that you made around how some of these managers had to almost get rid of themselves. I mean, I think that's what De Zerbi basically did. I don't know if they would have got rid of him if it wasn't for the tantrums. And by the way, I think that's why Barco's gone for everything that we're hearing, right? It seems like Barco did not pass the no dickheads policy.
It sounds like his attitude from all accounts. Like, not just from here, right? Like, not just from the Albion doing damage control. It sounds like it's been a problem since he came over to the UK and has lasted at every place he went on loan to. And I mean, it's like not a coincidence, right? Like that it went the way it did at Sevilla and everywhere, and no one wants him. Like, people are in, like, some people are like, there's something wrong with Hertzler. Like, we're getting rid of a world-class left back. Just last year, he was like one of the golden boy votes or whatever. And it's just like, well, if he's a world-class left back, why are only Strasbourg interested in hiring, like bringing him in? Like, if he's a world-class left back, why have we not got lines of people? I've seen similar stuff about Enciso. He's going to be a world-class centre attacking midfielder. If he's world-class, why is Ipswich his destination?
By the way, who's the manager for Strasbourg?
I don't know.
Liam Rosenior.
Is he? I know that's. I know them as the Chelsea feeder, aren't they?
Liam Rosenior. So I wonder if there was a kind of like a, go on, mate, do us a solid here.
I mean, yeah, it could have been. I also think that I'm trying to see something here if I can.
I'm going to, while you look that up, do you know what I do find quite funny about our transfer dealings is that we did the whole bring in Diego Gomez and immediately Julio Enciso, his countryman, goes out on loan, leaves the club. Yeah. We've brought in Aaron Cashin. Evan Ferguson's about to walk out the door. I know Cashin was born in England, but is represented the Republic of Ireland. I don't know what it is why we sort of seemingly have to, there can only be one Highlander kind of situation with some of the nationalities that we bring in, but a weird pattern is emerging.
It is weird, isn't it, that we're having that happen? I do find it really strange. I have this other one that I did want to bring up here. So Brighton right now, played 24, won 8, drawn 10, lost 6, 35 goals, 4, 38 against, -3 goal difference. Bournemouth last season at this stage, 8 wins, same as us, 6 draws, and 10 losses. They're sitting on 30 points, 35 goals. It's exactly the same as us, and a -12 goal difference because they conceded 47. Got to ask the question: Iraola's turnaround, is that something you foresee in Hertzler's future? Do you think that's something that could be done here? Like, do you look at the performances we've seen and think, yeah, like that's something we could do? Like, because looking like the parallels are there. Like, I have to ask the question: everybody is waxing lyrical about Iraola, but here we are. This time last year, their record speaks for itself. It was actually slightly worse than ours.
I mean, this is the same Iraola Bournemouth side that we beat not that long ago, who then battered Forest 5-0 last week, who then battered us 7-0. What a weird world. There's a reason Hertzler was brought in. Tony Bloom and Paul Barber are not stupid people. I think almost everyone would agree with that statement. What did they see in him? They saw a guy that pulled off what is essentially a miracle with St. Pauli.
Yep.
They pretty much shut down the town or whatever when they did what they did. A guy that had no experience came in, turned them around immediately, made them something out of nothing. They liked his style of football. They thought it melded well with what we've been doing over the course of the last few years under the transition of coaches through Potter to De Zerbi, now over to Hertzler. This wasn't a knee-jerk decision. Are they going to now say, all right, we're done with that, it's not worked out, we've made a mistake? Or, yes, we'll keep him around because we think there is a ceiling of an Iraola? I don't know. We don't have the data to see what they saw in him in order to make that decision. But youngest ever Premier League manager, you know that you're going to get noise out of making that signing basically an unknown to most people before he came in. you know it's going to be risky. And we just talked about this. We talked about the fact there's never going to be smooth sailing. There was always going to be something when you take a risk on someone like this. I don't think they bring him in unless they see this person being a guy that can get Brighton into Europe. We've talked about this time and time again. This club is designed to be a top 10 side in the Premier League, and their aspirations are to be minimum top 10, preferably in Europe every season. They've just invested 200 plus million in the transfer window in the summer and given Herzl the keys to the car.
I just, he wasn't first choice, was he? He wasn't. We know he wasn't. Do you know who was?
Ange Postecoglou?
Oh, Kieran McKenna.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was very well reasoned that it was Kieran McKenna. Yeah, sure.
If the wheels continue coming off, I think we'll go back in for him in the summer when they go down. I really do. I really think that it's a possible way we go here. I know we're at time.
Do you want him?
No. Doesn't matter what I want though, does it? But I can see us doing that if they're, depending on what they've felt about the way they've seen his season unfold. If they are encouraged by him and everything they've heard in Premier League circles, he is our was our number one choice. I would not be 100% shocked if that happened, but we'll just have to see. Next week, Chelsea review. Can't wait for that. And we've also got transfer window deadline day wrap up as well, based on what we'll see. But it is the cup next week, right? I believe next week is the cup, and then it's the league the week after, right? So we'll see what kind of happens. For me, I think our season could be all but over come this time next week if we lose, because we're kind of out of the running of just about everything. So
yeah, cup first, and then that. Yeah, then it's just the damage limitation season, isn't it? Yeah. Don't know what else to say after that, but stick in there. And by the last thing, Matthew Hansen has commented as an Arsenal fan. Thank you for joining. Watched the team capitulate the last couple of seasons when it mattered most. I feel for you guys. You're not staring relegation in the face like Spurs. Well, maybe we'll just leave everyone with that. It could be worse.
All right. We'll speak next week, guys.
Cheers.